Howdy, friends. This is Lance, and one of my favorite things to do is train teachers on editing the master slides. I've actually been training teachers for quite some time on this, but when you edit the master slides, it becomes more permanent. And not only that, but it will show up right here. And you can grab a hold of these layouts and put them in so that way students can access them, you can access them, and then it's easily recoverable. So let's get started with a fairly new feature, and this is called Autofit. And what Autofit does is it will adjust the text size automatically if I use the shrink text on overflow. You can also do the opposite where it'll make the box bigger. So these guys right here are called placeholders. You get them with any of these layouts in Google Slides. So let's get rolling here. I'm going to move pretty quick here. So hopefully I don't lose you. So let's go to Slide, Edit Master. You'll see you have a whole bunch of layouts. I always start out with teaching teachers to click on the bottom slide, start hitting backspace or delete, depending on what device you have. If you're on a Chromebook, you don't have a delete button, so you have to hit backspace. You won't get rid of this last one because I'm actually using that slide in my slide deck. If I really wanted to, I could delete that, but I generally don't. For this, I have a couple of layouts here to get rid of these. I like to draw an invisible box, not touching these until I have to start outside, I should say, outside of those boxes, draw an invisible box around both of them, and I hit backspace to get rid of any layouts that Google gives you in Google Slides. Now, for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a Venn diagram. So I clicked on rename there. And I love renaming my layouts because then later on, when I click on this drop down, it's right there and it even has its name. Very fantastic way to prep your learning materials. So the next thing I'm going to do for this Venn diagram is I'm going to pull in some shapes. And I'm going to give you some tech tips here too on quickly building a Venn diagram. So I used a circle there and I'm going to make an exact replica of that. To do that, I hit Control D. That'll give me an exact copy of it and get it nice and aligned. So now I have these two circles. Now I need two different colors. So let's do some fill color here and let's get rid of the line. I'm going to do transparent for the line. For this guy here, I'm going to do red and get rid of the line. And just for fun, I'm also going to make it that, should have done this in the first place, apologize. For this guy, I'm going to do some drop shadow, and this one too. I'll do some drop shadow. And I did that in the format options right there in the menu of Google Slides. And now that I have my two circles, you might say, well, Lance, I want this to be a different color in the middle. Of course you do. So let's try this. Let's do the paint bucket and hit custom now that it's selected and adjust the transparency so that way it's translucent. And now I have my three colors. And that's way easier than trying to put a shape in there. The next thing I'm going to talk about are placeholders. Those are those preset text boxes that you can put in. You can get to it a couple of ways. You can go to Insert Placeholder. But the faster way to get to it is to use right beside the text box is the placeholders themselves. There's a drop down there. I recommend you use it that way. It's a little faster. And you have three different options. The difference between them is title placeholder says click to add title. Subtitle placeholder says click to add subtitle. And body text placeholder will look like a gigantic mess when you put it in. But then in Google Slides for the students, it'll just say click to add text. So just trust me on this. I'm going to use text. I'm going to use title placeholder. Pop that in there, and I'm going to adjust the size of it down to 20. I'm going to set this as shrink text on overflow. Now I'm going to warn you that the title placeholder, the shrink text does not work very well, just being honest. And I'm going to set the font style and click on the border, hit Control D. That gives me an exact copy. Try and line it up as best as I can with the other one. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is put in the body text placeholder. Again, I'm going to warn you, this looks ugly when you put it in if you're not familiar with editing the master slides. And you get a bunch of bullet points. I'm going to make sure that this is set for the shrink text on overflow. I want to make sure that that's the setting. And I'm going to leave this at 18. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bump it up to 20. I'm going to change the font style, change the font color. I kind of like doing that. And now that I have it set the way I want to hit Control D. You don't want to do that until you get it set the way you want. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. So I have that nice and aligned. Hit Control D again. And now I have 3 of them. Pretty good, huh? All right, so there is 3 body text placeholders. And now let's see what it looks like for students. So now I have it set up. They can put in their titles. They have these body text placeholders. If I need new ones, I can do multiple Venn diagrams. You could do this as collaborative. You could say student 1, student 2, and each of them have a Venn diagram. And they can put in their information. So let's start out with some titles here. And then if I wanted to do a comparison, I could. But watch what happens. This is why I'm really here. Watch what happens when I start to type a long response in this box. So there you have it. What happened was the font gradually got smaller and smaller as I continued to add text. It didn't change the size, it didn't overflow. Pretty fantastic feature that Google has added. I think it really adds, even though it might not be intended for school, I don't know if it is intended for schools really, but it really does help a teacher out as far as the students focusing on the learning experience and not so much on the formatting and the technology portion of the learning experience. Great update by Google. I'm so glad that they did that. Remember that it's right there on the placeholders themselves. You click on that drop down right there and you can change it to shrink text on overflow. You can also do resize shape to fit text so the box would get bigger. That's up to you, however you want to do it. But I really like the shrink text on overflow. I think that's a great addition.